Do you know a book about teenage gang fights in Tulsa, Oklahoma was handed to you in 7th grade by a teacher who was completely certain it was going to hit? And they were right. It did. And you still haven't entirely explained why. Well, that was The Outsiders. Released in 1983, Francis Ford Coppola's adaptation of S.E. Hinton's novel hit theaters after 16 years of the book being passed from locker to locker, desk to desk by kids who found pieces of themselves in its pages. See, Thomas Howell played Pony Boy Curtis, the kid who feels things too hard and has Robert Frost to thank for it. Matt Dillon played Dallas Winston, the only greaser that the others weren't entirely sure about. Patrick Swayze played Derry, the oldest brother who gave up his future to hold the family together. They also put Rob Lowe, Ralph Macchio, Tom Cruise, Emilio Estevez, and Diane Lane in the same field for 7 weeks in Tulsa. Number 15. The S.E. on every copy. That's a lie. The name on the cover reads S.E. Hinton. Not Susan. Not Susan Eloise. Just 2 initials with every trace of a teenage girl scrubbed off them. That was Viking's idea. In 1967, the men reviewing new books decided which ones would get taken seriously, and a gang violence novel written by a girl was going to hit a wall before anyone even read a page. So she signed off on it and vanished behind her own initials. She'd started the thing at 15, a student at Will Rogers High School in Tulsa, and did most of the work the year she was 16. The spark was real. A friend of hers got jumped walking home for being a greaser. She went home furious and started hammering out the scene that opens the book. A year and a half of rewrites later, Viking said yes. The contract landed the day she graduated high school. She wasn't 21 yet, so her mother had to co-sign it. The fiction being sold to teenage girls at the time was what she flatly dismissed as Mary Jane Goes to Prom. Polite, tidy, and nothing like the hallways she actually walked. The Outsiders was her private answer to that. In the same year, she pulled AD in creative writing. Number 14. Coppola couldn't afford The Outsiders. Hinton's asking price for the film rights was $5,000, but what she got up front was $500, 10% from a studio circling the drain. That studio was Coppola's own Zoetrope, freshly gutted by One from the Heart, his 1982 musical that cost about $26 million and pulled in roughly $636,000 at the box office. He'd bet the company on it and lost. So the man with a shelf full of Oscars showed up needing a hit and unable to cover a $5,000 rights fee. None of that moved Hinton. The Godfather didn't win her over. The Black Stallion did, the 1979 film Coppola produced, which she loved because it actually respected the book it came from. She owned horses, she'd seen it, and as far as she was concerned, that was the only resume that mattered. He handed her a cameo to seal it. She plays the nurse that Dallas badgers from his hospital bed. Number 13. The movie exists because of a school librarian and 104 kids. In 1980, Joe Ellen Masakian was a librarian at Lone Star School in Fresno, California, staring down a familiar problem. The boys wouldn't read. One book kept breaking through though, The Outsiders. She'd watched kids who never voluntarily touched a novel fight over the single copy she owned. So she set out to get it turned into a movie. Her students signed a petition, 15 pages of names in every color of ink. She picked Coppola to send it to. One catch, she had no idea how to reach him. Her local library dug up a New York business address. She mailed off the petition and a copy of the book and then got lucky in a way she couldn't have engineered. It was an office Coppola barely used, so instead of vanishing into a mountain of fan mail, her envelope landed right in front of him. Filming started exactly 2 years after she dropped that envelope in the mailbox, and Coppola stayed in touch the whole way. Before the wider release, the cast flew to Fresno and screened the film for the students who had signed. Number 12. Stevie Wonder wrote the song, not the bargain bit. The song over the opening credits, Stay Gold, wasn't some cheap library cue Coppola grabbed to save a buck. Stevie Wonder wrote the lyrics and sang it himself. The music came from Carmine Coppola, the director's own father, the same man who scored the Godfather films and Apocalypse Now. So a movie that couldn't cover the full rights fee for its own source novel somehow opened with a Motown legend and an Oscar-winning composer sharing one credit. Coppola was scraping together a $10 million production about kids who own nothing, sleeping cast members on strangers' couches, handing out smaller per diems to make a point. And the very first thing you hear is Stevie Wonder singing a ballad written specifically for a story about broke teens in Tulsa. Number 11. Half of 1980s Hollywood auditioned for this movie. Picture this. Tom Cruise, Rob Lowe, Patrick Swayze, Emilio Estevez, Ralph Macchio, Matt Dillon, and C. Thomas Howell in one room, reading for the same handful of parts while everyone they were up against sat a few feet away watching. That was Coppola's audition process. Less a casting call and more an acting laboratory. He'd pack dozens of young actors into one room, rotate them through every role, mixing and matching until the ensemble clicked. Brutal and completely intentional. Anthony Michael Hall came through and didn't make the cut, while Howell landed Pony Boy at 15 and Hall went off to build a career with John Hughes instead. Rob Lowe remembered the strangest part. Even while they were clawing at each other for the same roles, the guys were helping each other with makeup and hair between reads. Deadly serious, super competitive, and still as guys. The wild part isn't who won, it's who lost. Sean Penn read this. Number 10. Coppola made the greasers live like greasers. He didn't want his greasers and socks getting too friendly, so he built the movie's class divide straight into real life. The socks got better hotel rooms, bigger per diems, nicer scripts. The greasers got worse rooms, less money, and beat-up paperback scripts to match their beat-up characters. Then he pushed it further and sent the greaser actors to spend a night in the actual homes of working-class Tulsa families. That's how Rob Lowe and Tom Cruise wound up asleep on a couch next to a stranger's furnace in an Oklahoma basement. Funny, because only weeks earlier Cruise had lost it over the idea of sharing a hotel room with Lowe. Lowe's word for the reaction was ballistic. He demanded his own room, and got it. Then the director told him to go sleep on a stranger's couch, and this time he did it without a word, because Coppola said it would help. By the time cameras rolled, nobody had to act the divide. It was already there. Number 9. Tom Cruise did the most for the least important role. On the page, Steve Randall is the least essential greaser in the whole movie. Soda Pop's best friend, doesn't die, doesn't get an arc, barely load-bearing. But Cruise played him like the lead in a war epic. He had a chipped front tooth that he'd capped, and before filming he had the cap taken back out so Steve would look rougher. During the 7A Rumble shoot, where Estevez split his lip and Howell picked up a black eye, Cruise caught a punch to the jaw and needed emergency dental work the next morning. Off the clock, he and Lowe boxed in the hotel hallways for fun. Then there's the backflip. Cruise was the only person in the cast who could do one, which is the only explanation for why Steve suddenly does a backflip mid-film. He runs out of a house, flips clean, lands, and carries on like it's a perfectly normal way to leave a building. Nothing in the scene calls for it. Coppola saw it, shrugged, and left it in the final cut of a movie about class, grief, and lost innocence. It tells you everything about Steve Randall in 2 seconds. Number 8. Coppola kept yelling, "More fire." The church fire in the movie is a real fire that got more real than anyone planned. Chasing realism the way he always did, Coppola kept calling for more flames, and the small controlled blaze took the hint and went fully out of control. What saved the day wasn't a crew or a fire marshal. It was a downpour that rolled in at exactly the right second. The church wasn't just a backdrop either. It's where the whole movie turns, Johnny and Pony Boy hiding out, then running back into the flames to pull kids clear. The moment that brands them heroes right before everything falls apart. Coppola's obsession with getting the fire real wasn't recklessness. He wanted the danger to read as genuine because for a few minutes there it actually was. Number 7. The famous poster was never supposed to happen. The official image, 7 greasers mid-laugh, the one that's been on merchandise for 40 years, came out of a photo session meant to look menacing. But then Leif Garrett wandered over to the craft service table and Ralph Macchio reportedly cracked, "Hey Leif, that's for the talent." The whole crew lost it, the photographer kept shooting, and that laugh became the poster. In 1982, Garrett might have been the most famous face in that entire cast, a teen idol since the mid-70s with a pop career and film credits that predated almost everyone on set. But the ground had shifted. By the time they shot the poster, he was 20 and playing a supporting villain surrounded by 7 actors about to spend the next decade owning Hollywood. Not one of them knew that was what the picture was catching. Number 6. Matt Dillon fell, and Coppola kept rolling. During the drive-in scene, Dillon tips backward and falls clean out of his chair. Nobody wrote that, he just lost his balance. For a split second, C. Thomas Howell glances dead into the camera, 15 years old, checking whether Coppola is about to yell cut. He doesn't. Coppola had spent weeks pushing these kids to quit acting and just be teenagers together. So when Dillon went down, Howell did what an actual 15-year-old would do and looked for the grown-up in charge. Dillon's fall doesn't land because it's well acted. It lands because for one accidental second, not one person in the frame was acting at all. Number 5. Even the extras became famous. The Rumble is 2 minutes of mud, rain, and teens swinging at each other, but watch the edges. That's Flea as a SOC, his first film role, more than a year before the Red Hot Chili Peppers released their debut album, meaning his acting career technically started before the music did. A couple of bodies over is Cam Neely, 17 and chasing an NHL spot, who became a Boston Bruins legend and landed in the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2005. Then there's Nicolas Cage, born Nicholas Kim Coppola, the director's own nephew, who auditioned hard for Dallas Winston, locked himself in a room for 2 weeks studying Charles Bronson photos, and lost the part to Matt Dillon anyway. He dropped the Coppola name soon after, determined to build a career nobody could pin on his uncle. Sofia Coppola also appears, credited only as Domino, the little girl who hits Dallas up for spare change. Number 4. Coppola spent his day off writing another movie. Midway through shooting, he asked Hinton if she had another book he could adapt. She pointed him to Rumble Fish, a strange, difficult little novel she was so protective of she wouldn't even hand him a copy. He bought one himself, came back completely hooked, and every Sunday their one day off, the two of them sat down and wrote the Rumble Fish screenplay together. By the time The Outsiders wrapped, they had a draft ready. That same summer, still in Tulsa, he started shooting it. Rumble Fish grossed about $2.5 million against a $10 million budget. He spent his one day off from the movie that would save him writing the movie that wouldn't. Number 3. A member of House of Pain saved the house from demolition. The Curtis house wasn't a set. It was a real family home at 731 North St. Louis Avenue in Tulsa that slowly fell apart for 2 decades after production wrapped. In 2009, Danny Boy O'Connor from House of Pain had a 3-day layover in Tulsa while touring, loved The Outsiders since he was a teenager, had a cab driver take him to the filming locations, found the house, and snapped a photo that went viral. In 2016, he bought it outright for $15,000, about half his life savings, gutted it to the studs, and rebuilt it to match the movie with help from fans worldwide and a $30,000 check from Jack White. The Outsiders House Museum opened in August 2019 and now pulls in around 20,000 visitors a year. Number 2. The director got corrected by 7th graders. In 2005, Coppola brought The Outsiders to his granddaughter's class and spent 91 minutes quietly squirming as kids kept asking where things were. Whole scenes from the book had been cut, emotional connective tissue trimmed years earlier under pressure from Warner Brothers who wanted it shorter. 12-year-olds who had read the novel clocked every missing piece, and Coppola walked out realizing the kids knew the book better than his own film did. So he fixed it. The 2005 re-release, The Outsiders, the complete novel, runs 114 minutes, restoring a new opening where Pony Boy gets jumped, a courtroom scene after Johnny's death, and the late-night talk between Soda Pop and Pony Boy that readers consider the emotional heart of the book. He also swapped his father's sweeping orchestral score for early Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, and Carl Perkins, the rock and roll that actual Tulsa greasers would have had playing in the mid-60s. The definitive version exists for one reason. A classroom asked where the good parts went. And number 1. Robert Frost gets credit for a line he never wrote. Pull up Robert Frost's Nothing Gold Can Stay. 8 lines, 30 seconds. One famous closing idea. Nothing gold can stay. That's Frost. Stay gold, Pony Boy? That's S.E. Hinton. It's Johnny Cade's line from the letter he leaves Pony Boy after he dies. Hinton took Frost's mournful observation that nothing good lasts and flipped it into a command. Hold on to the good while you still can. Same 2 words, aimed in the exact opposite direction. The reason they blur is that Johnny says it moments after Pony Boy recites the actual Frost poem, and over 60 years the line and the poem have melted together. It turns up on graduation cards, forearm tattoos, yearbook pages, and record sleeves, and half the time gets credited to Frost. A line he never wrote. Think about where this started. A teenage girl who published under initials so male reviewers wouldn't dismiss her. There you have it. 15 weird and wild facts about the outsiders. Which one surprised you the most? Drop in the comments and share this with whoever handed you this book at the right moment in your life. They'll want to see it. Subscribe because some things deserve to stay gold longer than 91 minutes. Until next time, this is Vintage Diaries.